The story you're about to hear is so shocking, so unbelievable, that your mind is going to struggle to allow you to accept that things like this exist. But they do, and they are happening right now all over the world, even in small towns right here in the United States. Kendall's story begins when she was a newborn and her parents sold her to a powerful man who owns a dangerous international sex trafficking organization, a man she says still owns her and wants her back. Kendall says every glamorous event and plane ride was with a wealthy client who paid for her so they could abuse her in ways, well, they're just simply too horrendous to comprehend. Now, for nearly 4 months, we researched Kendall's story, trying to verify its authenticity. And after speaking confidentially to agencies, we were able to confirm that Kendall has in fact been trafficked. And after speaking confidentially to agencies, we were able to confirm that Kendall has in fact been trafficked. Here's what she told us.
I was born into this world of sex trafficking. It's the only life I've ever known. Since I left, everything has been so hard, and nobody except the man who owns me can help me. I was given to the man who owns me by my birth parents. One of my first memories was thinking that it was normal for men to be fondling babies. My whole life I traveled all over the world and would go to some of the biggest events to meet clients and have sex with them. They were all extremely rich and prominent members of society. Sometimes they would just want to have sex with me, and sometimes they'd make me have sex with different people. The clients were often physically abusive. Clients were even allowed to smother me with a pillow or plastic bag while having sex with me, but they were never allowed to leave marks or bruises on my face because I always had to look pretty. The man who owns me constantly manipulated me and did horrible things to me. He would make me be a dog, made me eat feces. I was kept in a cage. Sometimes he would electrocute me as punishment. He said that all of this was happening because it was God's will, because God made me for this. If I told anybody about what was going on, that nobody would believe me. I 100% believed him. I still believe him.
Now you might be saying, Dr. Phil, are you buying all of this? I can tell you that a very reliable source has confirmed to us that Kendall has in fact been trafficked, raped, molested, and severely abused by a very large, very dangerous organization. I can tell you that a very reliable source has confirmed to us that Kendall has in fact been trafficked, raped, molested, and severely abused by a very large, very dangerous organization. Now that same source also confirms that she is not a runaway.
I was told by the man who owns me that my birth parents had me for him, so I've always been his. One time I met them and they told me that I should appreciate what they did for me. They told me that this was the best thing for me. I believed that they were right, and I also believed that it was my fault that I didn't appreciate it. The man who owns me told me that I was special to him, I was strong, very smart, and not every girl would be able to do the job that I was made to do. I traveled with him frequently. When he had very special clients, I was the person that they would see. When the man who owns me wasn't around, there were people that we called watchers, whose job was just to watch us, and there were people whose job was just to move us from place to place.
And by the way, many chosen ones who are older have become handlers of others. Just like many older chosen ones have personalities inside that know how to do rituals and everything else, they also have inside personalities that know how to split and program and bond and conjure demons and place them and then handle on a basic level other multiples. The other side of the story is watchers. Watchers are simply those who just come around and they're and I've had so many stories across, the board of people saying, well, you know what, we feel somebody's watching the house, somebody's watching the church, somebody's watching the counseling center. Listen, handlers will send in watchers to visit your church. People from covens who are going to come just to watch, and that's usually meaning reconnaissance, to observe. Everywhere we've dealt with multiples that watchers show up. They're lesser people in the coven, and that's part of their job, to go out and watch, to go out and call the handler, to tell them. They're out there informing also. We have numerous engagements with watchers like this. And you hear multiples that you're dealing with talk about enforcers, or simply ask them about enforcers. Enforcers are those who will, when a multiple is retrieved back, they're going to do stuff. They're going to do stuff to enforce secrecy, silence. They're going to do stuff. They can be called a punisher. They're going to do harm.
When the man who owns me wasn't around, there were people that we called watchers, whose job was just to watch us, and there were people whose job was just to move us from place to place. When the movers would come for us, they would always come in the middle of the night like they were kidnapping us and drug us. They would put several of us in the trunk of a car. They were constantly moving me to different places, brothels, and sometimes to big mansions with servants. In some of these places that we would stay, we would be in basements. In some places we would be in rooms with cages or with tools on the wall, locks with different keys, and they were all used sexually on us. For the little boys, men would have sex with them. When they turned 5, then they were forced to have sex with women. The girls would start having sex as infants. All of this was completely normal to me, and I never thought seriously about leaving.
Now you may notice that Kendall has this flat affect, a technique they use to survive this horrendous abuse. Kendall has this flat affect, a technique they use to survive this horrendous abuse. And before we meet Kendall, I want to talk to someone who has rescued women just like her. Former LAPD Lieutenant Andre Dawson supervised the FBI Innocence Lost Task Force and the Los Angeles Metro Human Trafficking Task Force, and he's now heavily involved in training law enforcement on how to recognize and respond to victims of human trafficking. So, Lieutenant, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Now, when I said how to recognize and respond, even though sometimes these victims are out on their own and alone, if they're approached and asked, are you okay? Are you being held captive? Are you being trafficked? Even though there's nobody standing right there listening to what they're saying, they will deny it, correct?
Yeah, they will.
Now, this is an international ring, and we've talked to government agencies about this. what makes it hard to catch these folks? They do move in private planes. They move outside the system a bit. But why is it so hard to catch these people?
In order to successfully prosecute these individuals, the traffickers or the pimps, you need the cooperation of a victim. And if a victim will not testify or will not cooperate with law enforcement, at least for the criminal portion of that particular case, it's hard to prosecute.
I think people generally don't realize when there's a big sporting event that there is a high concentration of these traffickers that bring women in. That this woman has been brutalized, she has been exploited, she has been trafficked. I believe that to the core of my soul. Kendall is here, and she says that her clients were wealthy and influential men and women, all with a penchant for doing unthinkable things to children. Now, she says some of these clients were law enforcement, even FBI. Now, I'm going to have to dismiss Lieutenant Dawson because Kendall already fears, in fact, her number one fear is that I'm not going to believe her and that I'm going to send her back to the man who owns her. We're going to meet her after the break and hear what she has to say. We'll be right back.
Some clients own their own island or a big piece of land, and they would buy us just to hunt us. Some laid traps for us, and others would track us down like animals. It was important never to be the one captured first because you didn't want to appear like you weren't playing the game. You would be punished. It's one of the scariest things clients ever had me do.
Now, sometimes she was used as arm candy, others for very sick games. On the outside, her clients were pillars of their community.
Right up front, everyone is required to declare whether they have been or currently are a Mason.
Well, because the Masons were, and maybe still are, very powerful here. I mean, do you think there were people being protected by pillars of the establishment?
Her clients were pillars of their communities. But behind closed doors, she says they were sinister and evil human beings.
The clients I was forced to have sex with were very rich and powerful, very important VIPs. They were in law enforcement, doctors, psychiatrists, judges, politicians, even people who owned sports teams. I attended many parties for people who had just got elected into office. I attended many parties for people who had just got elected into office. When I would attend these events, I had to look pretty and act like I belonged there. I had to know how to hold a conversation about politics. I would be at all of these nice events, but it would never end nice for me. At parties where people knew what we were there for, the clients would treat us really poorly. Many times clients were physically abusive. I've had broken fingers and broken ribs and been kicked a lot in the head. And I've even been sat on and smothered. The clients all had different expectations for what they wanted from me and what they wanted me to do. Sometimes they would bring little boys into the room and they would make me have sex with them. Many of the boys were as young as 5. To this day, I still wonder if I raped those little boys or if they raped me. Now I feel lost. I wrote to Dr. Phil because I feel like he might be able to help me and that maybe he can give me some idea of why I should even be alive.
You said you could tell the difference between girls that were born into it, according to him, versus those that were kidnapped when you encountered them. How could you tell the difference between the two?
The girls that weren't born into it, they had a harder time. They were always kept tied up or in cages, and they cried a lot.
And do you remember how old you were when you first had sex?
It was before I could talk. I was used to it by the time I was 2.
Do you know how old you are?
No,
Do you have any idea?
probably about 23.
That's a guess, right?
Yeah, I looked at like on Facebook where they say you're a child of the 90s if you remember these toys and stuff like that, and so then I try to guess from that. The man who owns me is smart and rich. He has connections with very powerful people all over the world. My whole life, he made sure that I knew he was in complete control.
You say that you have witnessed him murder people.
Yes.
How many people have you seen him murder?
Probably about 20 or 25, but then there would be lots of times that he would be there and have other people do it.
And how would he murder these people?
One time he just like took the little girl's head and twisted it. He's shot people.
Did he kill children?
I know for sure he killed her.
You were there. And how old were you at this point?
About 4.
And you're guessing at these ages, right? Because you
Yeah.
don't know. You said that he has actually forced you to kill people. How did you do it?
One time he had me hold like a newborn baby. He said that I had to hold it by the neck because newborn babies can't keep their head up by themselves. The baby died. I didn't know that he said that the baby had fallen asleep, that I had put the baby to sleep. I didn't realize till later that I had killed it. When I was in the world of sex trafficking, I gave birth to children. I was allowed to get pregnant because men paid for that. I was pregnant several times, but I had several abortions. I had 3 that survived, 2 girls and a boy. When I had each child, they were all induced so that I wouldn't get too big. After I had each baby, they were taken away, but sometimes I would get to see them later as a reward. I don't know who their fathers are or where they are. Like if I did something right or if he wanted me to do something, sometimes he would say I could see one of them after. And there was the younger girl I had, I saw her more often than the other 2.
And when you were flown, you said sometimes you were put on a private jet and flown into a big event, and you had to dress up and be highly groomed, and so you would fit in.
For the clothes, usually a guy would come in with a lot of expensive clothes and dress us up. I also had a hair and makeup artist.
That would fix you up for a big event.
Yeah.
And how much would you charge these people?
I didn't charge them anything.
You didn't handle the money.
No.
So it was direct to, who did handle the money?
I guess the people working for the man who owns me.
You say you had 6 fake passports, right? These passports were created and given to you by this man, correct?
Yeah, by one of the people who worked for him.
Right. And you would use that to fly to another country to go to some event, correct?
Yeah, or just to go see a client.
You say that you would rather die than go back to him. True?
Yeah.
Have you tried to end your own life? How many times?
Probably like 7 to 10 times over the past 1.5 or 2 years.
You say you feel a strong draw to go back to him.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know exactly why. I just, like, I belong there.
Kendall had said one thing in particular that gave me great hope and optimism. You said, I'm confused. The fact that you're confused means that this is an open subject for you. We're in the game, right? That means we're in the game. When people come here, this is the beginning of our relationship, not the end, okay? I've got guests that have been on this show 8, 10 years ago that I'm still involved with. And this is the beginning. I've never been under the misapprehension that I'm doing 8-minute cures up here. I have at my fingertip the top resources in the nation lined up to help you. Okay? Beginning immediately. Beginning immediately. And I'm not going to say who, and I'm not going to say where, because I don't want anybody knowing where you're going or who you're seeing or where they can find you. You deserve a chance to have your life and live it the way you want to live it. What I want to do is give you that chance. Fair enough? You willing to take it? Okay. All right.